Every year we host the Africa Outlook Conference, looking at the future of the continent for this coming year, which will blend economics, politics, governance, security, trade, and that's what we're doing at this year's event here in Johannesburg.
We're hoping that we can take the discussion to saying what can we do about the continent? What are the solutions that we need to put in place to ensure that this continent continues to thrive and that this continent is able to succeed against the many other regions that it has to compete with.
The general conclusion is that we at Standard Bank remain bullish about the African continent. Africa will continue to grow at between 4 and 5% a year for the next 5 years.
So it's very difficult to talk about Africa as if we're all the same. I've heard a lot about us being united and having an Africa perspective, and I think as Africans we must do that. We must lead the continent forward as a group. I think with the IMF, some of the challenges that I've had is this Africa view. We should be looking at the differences and the characteristics of each country.
I think first and foremost is we still see Africa having growth. If we come back and we say, what is a winning company in Africa? And I'm talking Africa company as opposed to major multinational, and that is they need to have focus. So I think if you're going to be successful in Africa, you need to have focus and you need to be resilient and you need to keep that focus there. You need to have the facts. And I think a big difference between many of the multinationals and the African companies, it's knowing and having the facts in the market. The other important thing I think going forward from our point of view is flexibility, because you do have an environment which can change very fast.
On top of that, you have this El Nino drought effect. Down here, actually in Kenya, if I recall correctly, I was there a couple of weeks ago, it's the opposite, it's too much rain. So weather patterns that are not helping. Agriculture in South Africa is not a big part of the economy, but food prices matter for a lot of people.
With regards to the other ratings we have, they're all by now in the single B category. We had a number of double B-ish ratings like Nigeria, for instance, and a couple of the other oil producers. With what we've been seeing in the oil space with prices decline, pressures on their balance sheets, pressures in particular on their current accounts, pressures on their fiscal performance, ratings have declined.
The big question that's being debated in Davos as we speak, which is the so-called fourth industrial revolution, means essentially a combination of automation and connectivity. Picking up on your last session is the potential for some African countries, a very few I would suggest, to capitalize on the broad shift of production away from China particularly, so the rise of 3D printing particularly. So what does 3D printing mean for the production of footwear, for instance? It means you can do it in your backyard if you want. You don't necessarily need to mass produce it.
The economies and societies that take first advantage of change will be the ones that succeed. African businesses that are willing to innovate and find the opportunities in environmental challenges are those that will drive the entire discourse on economics in the mid-21st century. If indeed the rest of the world turns away from Africa because of far-flung geopolitical concerns, Africa will need Africa to secure Africa. And Africa has a tradition of fending for itself, and this may indeed be an empowering moment for both political and business actors. If you're able to develop continued internal cooperation, which indeed this conference already represents, then I believe that the opportunities that are available in these crisis moments will indeed become advantages.
I think this is going to be a dramatic year for change, not all of it positive, but we need to be a lot smarter how we engage the continent, because is Africa rising? Is it Africa uprising? What else is happening in our continent in 2016? What are these deeper forces? Through these respective lenses, looked at economics, politics, governance is a key issue, of course, trade, security. That's how we as a firm are looking at the continent. We have very pervasive presence across Africa, but something which we need to start looking at Africa, not even talking about Africa. We are Africans. Best we understand it a lot better.